People have asked me to talk about improvisation, particularly on the song Satin Doll by Duke Ellington. So here we go with a lesson on Satin Doll and how to improvise and some of my concepts on how to make your improvisation better. Here we go. Now let's pretend you're sitting in my living room here with me, next to me at the piano, and I'm demonstrating some things about improvisation to you that are important things that I've learned over the years that I think make improvisation better. And we'll just ad-lib this. There's no script, and if I make a mistake, I'll just keep going. Now, of course, when you're playing any song, you want to learn the scales that go with the chords that you're playing, the chord progression. So it's D minor, G. That's pretty much Dorian there. And then on this one, you can pretty much figure this one is, you can put that F sharp in there if you want to. Or you could use the F too and make it Phrygian, but if you use that, then the E minor is relating to its relative minor of G. We're in the key of C, so I mean you could use the F, but now important thing is that you're using the scales as a means to an end, but rather than just playing a bunch of notes that are based on the scale, you're using those scales to find the notes that are the target tones and that are the passing tones. So there's target tones, which are usually thought of as chord tones, and then there's target tones, and then there are notes that are thought of as passing tones to the target tone. So this is a target tone, passing tone, target tone, passing tone, you know, so a good melody is constructed of hitting those target tones in the right place. So I want to hit a target tone if I'm playing 1, 2, 3, 4, like D minor 7, G7. On the G7 I want to hit a target tone in the G chord. So I'm thinking of those notes. So I'm thinking of that note, that third, which is different than any of the notes that are in the D minor, in that it's a passing tone in D minor, but it becomes a target tone in G, so that's very important. So now what I did was I played figures, what I would call phrases. You want to play phrase shapes rather than just scales or just a bunch of notes. You want to play a phrase that is sort of like a phrase that you speak. In other words, you want to play a phrase. That is a distinctive thought. I'm not rambling on like this and saying, well, you want to play a phrase, but then you want to go beyond that and you want to do something else, and you want to like put some altered chords in there or some altered notes, and you want to play half steps and whole tones and this and that. I'm not creating a lot of things. I'm just saying something very simple, like you want to play a phrase. You want to play a phrase, you know. In other words, you want to play phrase, and they want to be shapes. They want to be things that have movement ascending, movement descending, movement horizontal, and movement vertical. So let's break those down. Ascending, of course, is up the scale. Descending, of course, is down the scale. Ascending in steps is scalar. Ascending in other words, that's horizontal. Vertical would be skips. So you want to combine them. This is a combination of skips and scales. Ascending, skips, hitting a target tone, and then descending in a scale. Descending, ascending, horizontal, vertically, descending, horizontally. So there you have it. See, so first thing I did was I played a lick, and I worked this lick out ahead of time as an illustration of what I'm talking about. I played this. Then I repeated. So I'm repeating it. Now that is what I call a root-oriented progression. In other words, a root-oriented figure. It's based on the root, and it has a numerical number to it. In other words, just like Satin Doll is this, is like 5. It's the 5 of the D minor chord to the 4 of the D minor. Then it goes to a G chord, but that's the 1 of the G. Then it does the same thing up a whole step. Now those are root-oriented progressions, or root-oriented figures, melodies. Like, so there's two things. There's the root-oriented, and then there's the sequence. Now a sequence could be just something like, it doesn't necessarily relate to the steps of the scale in terms of like, okay, this is 5 to 1, and this is 5 to 1, and this is 5, 1. They could relate in this way. It could be ba-da-ba-ba, and then it could go. In other words, it's a figure that rhythmically and in such a way repeats the same thought, but on a different part of the scale. Not the same numerical figure. Let's say 1, 3, 5, 7. It might go to 3, 7, 9, 11. So those two things, when you use them in your solos, will create more meaningful ideas and more listenable. For the listener, they're hearing something that makes more sense than just a lot of notes or random notes or playing on scales. You can do all this kind of stuff. Well, who cares about that? In other words, play some melodic ideas, So this is a melodic idea. Now repeat it. Now what does that do? It strengthens the idea. In other words, it's one step after the other. In other words, you're telling a story. Just like I said, we went to the store. What happened after that? Well, we walked in, we saw the grocer, and he greeted us. What happened after that? Well, we asked him, do you have any, pine nuts? And he said, no, I don't have those. You got to go to a specialty store. In other words, you're telling a story which is engaging your listener into the events of the story, from one step to the next step. Oh, you say this, okay, the next thing that happens. So now you get the idea of telling a story. In other words, one phrase can lead to the next. Now, you don't want to do that to such an extent that you're just mimicking yourself all the time. You don't want and then I did that a little bit in that solo just to illustrate the point, but you want to mix it up. In other words, if you do it too much, then it sounds sing-songish. It sounds too predicted and not interesting. So what you want to do is you want to maybe repeat a phrase and then maybe change it and then do something different. Mix it up. If you listen to Horace Silver, he plays these little licks, like he might play and then he goes. In other words, he mixes it up. In other words, he plays a couple of licks that really relate, and then he comes up with a new idea, and then he goes off from there. In other words, he'll play something simple and then something more complex. So you want to mix it up with simple ideas and complex ideas. Now, the other thing, and the central point I want to make, this is really important for a lot of improvisers, the people that are studying improvisation, or if you're a student or whatever, and that is the idea of completing the phrase. Now, this is central. I mean, like, you want to go off and do all these ideas. Well, you want to play phrases that end. In other words, that have a beginning and an end, like, no. That ends, right? In other words, it ends somewhere. And when I listen to some younger players, they don't understand that idea that it's deliberate. In other words, you have an intention to state something and have it take you somewhere and then have a sense of completion. Now, even if you're doing long ideas, like somewhere it has to come to a place where it resolves itself. Maybe it's not till the very end, the end of the 8 bars. Maybe, there, like you could go. In other words, it has to, at some point, and I think before that, you want to resolve your phrases before eight measures. It is important to come to some point where you're hitting a target tone on a strong beat and you get a sense of it ending. Like any sentence. Like I could just say sentences like, we went to the store and when we bought bread and then we left and we said, and I could just ramble on in which there's no periods. You got to have a period. Like when you tell a story, you have to have a place where you pause. I realize I listen to some of my videos and I don't pause, and so it's very hard for me to edit them because I'd start the next sentence so quickly. But, you know, and I need to do better with that. I need to end my thought, begin it, and leave a space, and you know, begin a new thought. And the reason I try to do that is when I'm speaking is I'm trying to move the video along. I'm trying to, you know, get the progress of the video. And you may think of that way when you play, but you really do need to come to some sort of point where you're ending a phrase like there, you know. You know, there like that. You know, like, so it has, boom, hits a strong target tone on a place, on a strong beat, so you get a sense of an ending. And, well, that's one of the big things, I think. Now, these rules that I'm telling you, or these suggestions, are just suggestions that I hope will help you to improve as a player. I don't want them to limit you, because you certainly can break the rules. In other words, all rules are meant to be broken. So, you know, you can use these ideas to your advantage to make your solos better, but then you can break the rules and do the opposite. And, you know, if you mix it up enough, then your solo is going to be interesting. If it's going to be just one way or the other, then it's not going to be that good, I don't think. You know, in my opinion. But that's just my, this is just my opinion. This is what I like to hear in soloists. I like to hear these concepts. A couple other things, if you're a pianist or a guitarist, is that you can play chord type melodies. Like, you know, I played this, that's mostly locked hands technique. That's a locked hands technique, and I have videos on that if you want to study that. That's another thing you can do as a pianist. But the other thing you can do is you can play melodies that are supported by chords like this. And that's like Bill Evans' thing, in which you're playing the rhythm of the melody in the left hand, synchronizing it with it, rather than just copying against it. Like, I'm playing like, in other words, that's actually emphasizing the rhythm of your right hand melody. And the other thing you can do is you can play octaves, melodies in octaves, like, you know, and you can play them also on octaves and also support it with maybe another harmony, like. I'm putting another harmony note in there besides the octave. So we get this big sound. So you have all these varieties of things. You can do things in. As a pianist, there's so many things you can do that other players can't do. You know, probably the closest thing would be guitarists can do this, but you can even do these kind of things, like in harmony. You know. You can do things like that. I mean, there's so many things you can do on a piano that it's really amazing. And it's so much fun to try to do all these different kind of techniques. So give them a try. I hope I can inspire you. I want to take a minute to show you my book. This is the cover. Inside you can see that it's designed to be in a 3-ring binder. So it's very practical. You can take pages out for easy photocopying. And so it has an advantage over most books for that reason. Plus it lies flat on the music stand. This is tilted because the music stand is tilted. But on chapter 26 in volume 2, Elements of Improvisation, these are advanced concepts. Now I also have beginner improvisation in volume 1, but this is in volume 2, and it covers elements like phrase, the motive, well-balanced melody, the accompanying harmony. They're all demonstrated in examples. The sentence, the sequence. Then you have horizontal movement, vertical movement, and here patterns and root-oriented progressions is what we covered in this particular this video. And then you have target tones and approach tones, and then other elements of improvisation. And also there's exercises in here and solos to learn. So this is very practical for beginners or any level, intermediate, advanced as well. So if you enjoy my videos, I'm sure you'll like my book, and it will be a very good resource for you. Signing off from the Jazz Ranch, please write to me. I love to hear from you. I always try to answer all my comments. You will see that I do that. And you know, I have like over 100,000 subscribers now, so it's very difficult to keep up. So I'm glad that I have the time at this point in my life to try to answer all my emails and all the people that write to me. And until next time, I will say, in the words of my great friend Hermie Dressel, the one and only, he's up there looking down at us with pity, as always, and he's saying, swing loose, and we'll see you next time around. Bye-bye.